Well, first of all, thank you all for coming to this occasion, and for those of you participating by phone, good morning or good evening. I'd like to thank all of the members of the media for their understanding that the Commission would not be issuing interim reports, and you were very good about not pursuing that line of inquiry, and thank you very much. The plan here is to make some general remarks and then attempt to answer any questions you may have. We started a bit late so that you can practice your speed reading and have a look at the summary of conclusions and recommendations that we've made. You've heard the introduction of the members, and I must say, as chair of the Independent Commission, I want to thank them for their enormous assistance. The background that Richard McLaren has in terms of investigations, broad understanding of the law, and a particular understanding of the appeal process and burdens in the Court of Arbitrations for Sport in case any of these matters get there. And for Gunther Junger, who's done an absolutely splendid professional job in supervising the investigation and actually taking part in it, we would not have been able to make as much progress as we have in such a short time without his professionalism. And through him, I'd like to thank his superior officers for lending him to us for this period of time. And having seen him at work, I know why they're anxious to get him back in the field. So here we are. The report, as you've probably been told, has now been posted on the WADA website in its entirety. And I hope you've had a chance to have at least a quick diagonal read of the first chapter of it, which is a summary of the findings and conclusions that we've reached, as well as the recommendations that we're going to make. We're very pleased that WADA has agreed with us that it should be the Commission itself that releases its report, even though it is a report to WADA. And this is something that has been pleasing to us because it means that, unlike in certain other cases, this report will make its way into the public domain. Since we are a commission established by WADA, we communicated the report to WADA last Thursday, very late last Thursday, Canadian time, to enable WADA to be able to arrange to put the report on the website, and as a matter of courtesy to allow it to consider whatever position it may wish to take with respect to the report. I should say that WADA was not given the opportunity to comment on the contents of the report, and no other persons or organizations were given the opportunity to see or to comment on the report before its release. The immediate cause of the creation of the Commission was, as was mentioned by Ben, a documentary shown on the German television network ARD in December of last year. And the broad lines of our investigation are outlined in Chapter 2 of our report. The allegations were very serious, and as mentioned, the WADA president immediately announced the formation of an independent commission. We met to settle on the terms of reference and to design a plan of investigation, including the selection of an investigative team to conduct the investigation itself under the overall supervision of the Commission. The terms of reference, and it's important to keep this in mind as we go through the process today, were essentially limited to athletics and to Russia, not to other sports and not to other countries. We will not bore you with the details of our investigation, other than to say that we are satisfied that it was thorough and that it was conducted by experts. The investigation was also conducted on the basis of a compressed timetable, since we believe that lengthy delays in coming to a report were not in the best interests of sport or the organizations or the individuals involved. You will note, if you've already skimmed the report on the website or in the handout that was made available to you, that there are two portions of it that are not yet made public. The first is the chapter on the IAAF. As the investigation went on, we discovered information that not only related to sport corruption in the general sense of it, but also to possible criminal actions as well. And that portion, including the facts and documents that we had in our possession, has been turned over to Interpol for investigation, for review, rather, and the possible reference to the appropriate authorities in one or more countries. In fact, WADA has negotiated a cooperation agreement with Interpol, and with that framework made it fairly easy for us to initiate that contact. After reviewing it, the Interpol authorities referred us to the French authorities, and the French authorities have agreed to take up the matter, and they are in the process of making their investigations. There will be a decision by the criminal authorities as to whether or not there will be a prosecution, and once that decision is made, it's our plan to release the entire report, including the materials that we made available to the French authorities. So we're not going to take any questions on that aspect of the investigation, just so that we don't compromise any work that may still be underway. But we do, however, expect to release that portion of the report not later than the end of this year. Incidentally, many of you have been made aware of a leak of certain aspects of that investigation. Just so that you're aware, that leak did not come from our commission, and it did not come from WADA. I believe the French have already made a statement on that, and our understanding is that Interpol will be releasing its own statement either during the course of this press conference or immediately after. The second portion that's not there deals with the allegations made also by ARD and other media outlets in August of this year regarding suspicious test results that may or may not have been diligently pursued by the IAAF. The terms of reference of our commission were extended to deal with those allegations as well. Now, in that, there are lots of data to be analyzed. The list involved several thousand athletes, so that is being done as we speak by our experts. The analysis has not yet been completed, but we expect that also to be finished and reported on prior to the end of the calendar year. To cut to the chase then, in sum, overwhelming portions of the allegations made on the ARD program have been found by the Independent Commission to be true. We want to congratulate the reporter who put it together, Haya Seppelt, and ARD on a very fine piece of investigative journalism, which has led to this unique opportunity to make some significant progress in the fight against doping in sport. The Commission also wants to congratulate the individuals who were courageous enough to be whistleblowers in this matter, despite them knowing that the usual outcome, at least initially, would be attacks on their character, their truthfulness, and even their loyalty. We need, and the Independent Commission will urge WADA, among others, to find more and better ways to enable such persons to come forward and to provide information that will contribute to the integrity of sport without the risk of retaliation and concerns for their personal safety. One of the feedbacks that we get from potential whistleblowers is they say, what's the point? Nothing will happen, even if we come forward with this information. Well, for those of you out there who think there will be no results from speaking out, you can see what has already happened, and you can imagine what is going to happen in future. Let me now describe some of the outcomes of the work of the Commission over the past few months. We have provided WADA with a number of sanction packages on individuals who had not previously been identified. We have delivered those to WADA, who have turned them over to the Russian Athletics Federation for treatment as is required under their rules. We have identified possible criminal violations, and as I mentioned, have reported those. We've identified a number of suspicious cases and brought the facts and the identities of the persons involved to the attention of the proper authorities. We have made findings and recommendations regarding the Moscow laboratory and the Russian NATO, RUSADA. We have reported on interference with doping controls on many occasions, not just in the past, but up to and including the middle of this year, well after it was known that this investigation was underway. We have found cover-ups, we found destruction of samples in the laboratories, we found payments of money in order to conceal doping tests, among others. The report, as you get a chance to read it, consists of various sections dealing with the facts, the findings and the conclusions of the Commission, and a series of recommendations directed at various organizations, including the World Anti-Doping Agency. The facts reflect those found in the course of the investigation. Wherever possible, we have sought to have corroboration, particularly in cases where there might be a sanction attached to the particular behavior. The conclusions or finding reflect the Commission's assessment of the evidence, of what the evidence has shown. They are, by their nature, judgmental, and they were not intended to be ambiguous in any way. The recommendations, on the other hand, reflect proper application of the World Anti-Doping Code, and in certain cases where sanctions may be appropriate, and in others, the identification of opportunities to achieve and improve code compliance and to contribute to the fight against doping in sport. I should also say that the findings and the recommendations reflect the unanimous view of this Commission. It's our hope that the parties affected by the recommendations will accept them in the spirit in which they're made, including WADA itself. And a special word, if I may, regarding the Russian Federation. Since Russia is the particular country involved in the matters investigated by the Commission, I think it's appropriate to say that the Commission organized a special meeting with the Russian Minister of Sport, Vitaly Mutko, and in the course of that meeting he invited the Commission to make recommendations that would enable him to ensure that Russia contributed to doping-free sport as an important sport country. We indicated that we would try to frame recommendations that would enable him to do that, but we advised the Minister in advance that he would not likely be pleased with many of the findings made in the course of our investigation, and those he's going to have to live with. What we hope is that Russia will seize the opportunity to move forward and to take a lead in attacking a problem that has the potential to destroy sport. So with that backswing, ladies and gentlemen, we are all ready to try to answer any questions you may have. Ben will direct the traffic, but if you could make a point of identifying yourself and your organization, that would be helpful to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dick. If we can take first questions from the floor, and we're then going to interchangeably go to our conference call to take any questions from the line as well. So, first question, please, Dan Rowan.
Hi, Dan Rowan, BBC News. How do you feel personally about what you've discovered? Sorry, Dan Rowan, BBC News. Dick, how do you feel personally about what you've discovered during this investigation, and where do you think it ranks in the history of sports scandals?
Well, it's pretty disturbing, you know, and the particular advantage we had in this is that we were not dealing with a he said, she said kind of thing. We actually had documents and recordings and witness statements and so forth to deal with. It's disappointing to see the nature and the extent of what was going on, and to reach the conclusion that it could not possibly have happened without everybody knowing about it or consenting to it. So it's worse than we thought. It has the effect, unlike other forms of corruption, of actually affecting the results on the field of play, and that athletes are both in Russia and abroad are suffering as a result of that. So the opportunity to acknowledge that it exists, and it may be a residue of the old Soviet Union system. It exists. Let's stop it, and let's make a new start. Is there? As I said earlier, I really hope that Russia takes that on board in that light.
Yes, gentleman on the third row, just on the left-hand side.
Yes, sir. Jamil Shade from Brazil. Two questions. First, on the Olympics next year, what do you expect to be the participation of Russia? What do you recommend in this case? And secondly, are the athletes the victims, or are they part of the problem as well? Thank you.
Well, for 2016, our recommendation is that the Russian Federation be suspended. In fact, one of our hopes is that they will volunteer that so they can undertake the remedial work in time to make sure that Russian athletes can compete under a new framework, if you like. If they don't, then it has to play itself out, and the outcome may be that there are no Russian track and field athletes in Rio. I hope that they they recognize that it's time to change and make those changes. The athletes are, technically the athletes have always been the ones that got caught. They're the ones that have had the doping substances in their systems. In many cases, it's part of a system where they have no practical choice. If they want to participate and have access to coaching, you follow the regime, or you're out, and you can be left out just generally, or you can be left out under some prejudice. And so they're part of the problem, but it's not a problem they created.
Next question from Steve Scott, please, and then we'll go to Mark Daly.
Steve Scott, IAAF News. Dick, what do you think would be the perception or the fallout if Russia did go ahead and was allowed to compete at the Olympics next year?
Well, if they do the surgery and do the therapy, I hope they can get there and compete. The idea is not to exclude people from the Olympics if you possibly can avoid that. But sometimes, if the conduct is such and it's not corrected, that's the price you pay for it. What I hope is they'll say, okay, this is an opportunity to get rid of that old system, get rid of all the old coaches, and change our ways, and be a leader. We should be good enough to compete without cheating. I would think so. We got the best part of a year now. I mean, if they'd start right now, rather than fighting tooth and nail, step by step, I think they could do it. I hope they can.
Mark Daly.
Mark Daly, BBC Newsnight. Dick, the current president of the IAAF, Sebastian Coe, called a recent bit of investigative journalism into athletics a declaration of war on his sport. He yesterday said that he was in the dark about the extent of the corruption within the IAAF. He also said he wasn't in favour of a ban on Russia. Is Sebastian Coe the right man to lead the IAAF out of this mess?
I think he is, and I think you have to draw a line between pre-election and post-election conduct and sayings. Yes, my guess is that he is taken unaware. We were too, I must say. Some of the things we found were nasty surprises to us, and I think that Seb Coe is somebody who can grasp this and be transformational enough to bring about some change in athletics. I hope so, because his sport is at risk if he doesn't.
Next question from David Walsh, Sunday Times.
Dick, your report shows us that the Russian anti-doping agency was involved in the conspiracy, that the Russian anti-doping lab was involved in aiding doping, that the Russian Federation was involved. How can this not be described as state-supported doping?
Well, as I mentioned, our conclusion was that all of this could not have happened and continue to happen without the knowledge of and either actual or implied consent of the state authorities. They were not operating sport, but as I say, they would certainly have known and could not have known about this.
Would you describe it as state-supported doping?
In the sense of consenting to it and allowing it, yes. I don't think there's any other possible conclusion.
Yes, Owen Gibson from the Guardian newspaper.
Dick, if Russia doesn't step forward now and voluntarily agree to suspend itself, if you like, from international athletics competition, what would you like to see the IOC and the IAAF do next? What practically can happen?
I think what we would want to see is the IAAF will suspend the Russian Federation. The IOC will be aware of that. The Russian National Olympic Committee will be aware of it. And if they all do their jobs, no entries would be accepted in the Olympics from that federation, proposed by and supported by the National Olympic Committee. That's what's supposed to happen.
ZDF German Television. I think you've just answered a part of my question. What has the IAAF and when can they say that Russia is suspended in, for example, the Olympic Games in Rio? The next session, or will they have a next session, or will they have something out of the ordinary?
My guess is they'd have to do something out of the ordinary. I don't know what their schedule of meetings is and whether they require a council decision or a full congressional decision, but they're going to have to act quickly.
Yes, Duncan McKay on the right-hand side, please.
Duncan McKay, Inside the Games. Dick, you talk about the judgment and integrity were compromised by the surveillance of the FSB within the laboratory during the Sochi Winter Olympic Games. How confident can we be that the results in Sochi were true and that they weren't cover-ups there?
I don't think we can be confident that there was no manipulation, Duncan, but we don't have any hard evidence that there was. We simply know that they were there, and it's hard to imagine what the Russian state interest in athletes' urine would be.
We'll take one more question from the floor and then we'll go on to our conference call and then come back to the audience here in Geneva.
Hi Dick, Matt Lawson from the Daily Mail. If you think people were complicit all the way to the very top, be it in the sport or indeed in government in Russia, who do you actually trust to perform the rebuilding? Like, who do you actually... who do you entrust with that job?
Well, it's a combination of trust plus verify, to go back to the nuclear days. The minister, I mean, he's frustrated to some degree. He certainly knew what was going on. They all knew that the coaches were somewhat out of control. They all knew that the coach's view was that the role of the national anti-doping organization and the national federation was to protect their athletes rather than to make sure that they were doping free. So I think that he recognizes that. He knows that there will be a fair amount of condemnation of the conduct to date, but we have given him the opportunity that he asked for. That will be combined with a pretty careful monitoring of what is done. I mean, from the accreditation of any new laboratory, we've recommended, as you probably saw, that the director of the laboratory be removed from his position, that the WADA accreditation be withdrawn, so they're going to have to start all over again. In the meantime, all their samples will have to be analyzed out of the country. As far as RUSADA is concerned, there will be a very careful supervision of its activities, its test distribution plans, the appointment of doping control officers. All of that will be monitored very closely by WADA before it would be willing to declare the organization code compliant. So there'll be a lot of supervision in that area by the independent agency that's responsible for monitoring code compliance.